Now, hey everybody, welcome to the show. It's me and Bilal, What's
and
up, guys?
we have an interesting subject to talk about. But real quick, I do want to say that today, well, on the 18th, we lost a very popular, very amazing sweetheart of a drag queen, Cherry Valentine. She passed away September 18th, but the media just knew about it today. So, you know, please go pay your respects if you're into the drag race world, if you're into that. Go pay your respects on her Instagram. Her family just announced it, and we give our love and prayers to the family and friends, and especially her fans.
Yeah,
Take it away.
agreed. Agreed. So I wanted to talk about this because we were talking about a lot of subjects were
Mm,
basically artificial memories, erasing people's minds, like erase, like kind of like erasing old memories and replacing them,
hmm
satanic panic and all that. And I said to myself, what was the one subject we didn't cover really? We didn't cover MK Ultra.
mm.
A lot of people don't know that. It's actually a fact. It was a project. It was actually listed under 150 different like 100 different 50 sub projects. Could be more, could be less, depends on
Yeah.
who you ask. Because the thing is that the only reason why there was a whistleblower was because, some, you know, bills were basically found, and the whistleblower found them, and that's history basically. So for anyone who doesn't understand, MK Ultra was basically created like in the 50s, basically because of the whole Korean situation. Basically, we had soldiers that came back after the Korean War. They were highly sympathetic for the Communist Party, and they decided to. They were like basically, somewhere I think we're claiming that we were doing things we weren't supposed to do there. So basically, they come back. Everyone's scared of the Red Scare. They think the
hmm
communists are learned how to brainwash people and all that stuff. So eventually, what happens is um, multiple operations were started. So the operations that were started, I believe, originally was, I think, let me just look at my notes
hmm
really quickly. Yeah, so operations were originally like I think for it. So basically, it was called like Bluebird.
hmm
Then 1948, 1949 morphed into Artichoke, and then in 1952 it became MK Ultra. Ultra, I believe, was just the designation for the extreme security. MK was just probably a designation. I'm trying to look it up.
hmm
But basically, the idea was to first defend against brainwashing,
hmm
basically figure out how the Russians were doing it, because that was their theory at the time. And then basically, how can we do it to other people, basically, they're on. And the projects had other such things as like hypnosis, seeing if you can get drug addicted people to do what you want,
hmm
brainwashing using electricity called psychic driving, but that came a little bit later.
hmm
Using LSD, which is a big new thing at the time.
Oh yeah.
Let me just check the chat really quickly. Hi, Soup
Hey,
Bomb.
hey, Sleuth Mom. Hey, Pecan. Hey, Mom.
Hi there.
Everybody else.
Yeah, Bass
No,
is gonna real. Oh yeah,
oh,
what's up?
no, no. Go ahead. Say what you were gonna say. I'm sorry.
No, you can say what she said. What's it gonna
Um,
say?
Um, watching like before this live, I was watching this the CIA's terrifying sleep room. Is that the same thing as you can
Yes.
see as the Russians were doing the exact same thing because they had
No,
a
no, no, no,
sleep room
no.
too.
No. His sleep room was actually done by a professor,
Okay.
by a guy called, it was called the Montreal Experiments, and it was
Mhm.
run by Donald E. Wynn Cameron. Basically, he was like, basically what happened is that the CIA used like a shell company
Yeah.
to fund him. So he was not directly funded by the CIA, or at least not knowingly. So let's say basically he developed the theory in 1953 of psychic driving. If you don't know what psychic driving is, it's pretty fucking terrible. But basically, the idea of psychic driving was a procedure whereby repeated audio messages would be played while you were
Mhm.
asleep. And usually, he did this by either, I believe, doing an insulin related coma to
Oh my
you
God.
that would last 20 to 30 days, and he would have a recording constantly played. And some of the recordings were to build you up, like, yeah, you're a good
Mhm.
person, whatever. Or recordings would be played like, you killed your mother, you killed your mother, you killed your mother. Played constantly for a month, basically. Or it would be,
Mhm.
that's if you got lucky.
Yeah.
If you were unlucky, you would have repeated electric treatment to your brain.
Mhm.
And sometimes he would also there was other things they used. Cure, which was a poison that paralyzes you while the messages were played to your head. So
Yeah.
sometimes you weren't even put into an insulin coma. You were used with the Cure, and Cure is basically a poison used in like I think like by hunters
Hmm.
to just it's like an alkaloid poison. It just basically paralyzes
Don't
you.
get it confused with a Keurig, which is a coffee maker.
Yeah, don't get it confused.
Yeah. And
And
yeah,
basically,
pecan, this is all true.
yeah, this
Go
is all
ahead.
true. This is all declassified. This is actually 100% true.
Mm.
And basically, what happened with the doc, this was in Canada, by the way, and not only that, the electricity would play, and sometimes he would also pair it with LSD.
Mm.
So let's say you had depression because you had a kid,
Yeah.
you would go, the sleep room would be sometimes a combination of you being passed out with curate, being paralyzed with the curate poison,
Mm-mm-mm.
or because he liked doing that one, that was his favorite, or he would do an insulin poisoning to you, so you go into a coma, or he would do electric treatment onto your head, continuous like high amounts of shocks, and also give you like basically LSD. Like one guy who had phantom leg pains, he did
Mm.
all three, which was he got like 16 administered doses of LSD without even telling them. By the way, they never told anyone that they were being treated for this or the treatments. They just grabbed you and did it to you, even if you went there with depression or psychic leg pain, anything like remote. They never told you. And if you
Mm.
tried to leave, they would just, completely grab you and toss you in there.
Mm.
And he was a very dominating man, and he believed, basically, Cameron believed in theory that society was the problem with society was that a lot of weak-minded people existed, and he was hoping that the idea of the treatment, the sleep room, was to completely wipe your mind away and then replace it and rewrite it so it can make a
Mm.
strong mind. The
Mm.
CIA thought that was a great idea because imagine if you could just wipe someone's mind and just reprogram them to be like assassins or to be loyal to you only, or
Mm.
perfect assassins. That's how the whole idea of the Manchurian candidate came out because
Mm.
the idea of putting a particular word being said and having them triggered, was
Mm.
a pot. That was the dream basically. So yeah,
That
he did
was the
that.
dream. That's
That
so
was the dream.
sad. Hey, Grandma Sherry.
And there, so
And
that was
people
the
think
sleep
you're
room.
crazy if you talk about this stuff in my experience. But it's all there for.
The
Yeah, it
cure. I mean,
is. You're right. You're right. It is out. Like, this is all declassified. It's on the
yeah, it
History
was.
Channel as well. Like, it's
Yeah,
not.
it's 74. I mean, and the head of the guy, the CIA, the spy master, was called. His nickname was called the Dark Sorcerer. He got that name. His real name was. Let me just pull it up. One moment. Just so I know his real name was Sidney Gottlieb. He was called the Dark Sorcerer because he liked to use a lot of poisons and a
Mm-mm.
lot of little techniques and technologies with poisons, like poison handkerchiefs and stuff like that. He was definitely a person you would not want to fuck with. He was definitely a messed up person, but yeah, a lot of people in the CIA were fucked up people, and he was one of them. He actually also probably liked to put LSD in his co-workers' drinks,
Oh,
and
God.
one guy did not have a very good time, and then got beat up. Like he committed suicide, but of course he got beat up before committing suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And at first they ruled it as a suicide, and then later on said, "Oh wait, that guy, we're gonna pay you a settlement. Sorry."
Mm-hmm. Bass would like you to spell the poison's name, please.
Oh yeah, one moment. I gotta
Oh,
write
okay.
it down. I mean, like here.
It's insane.
Yeah, it's the poison. It's
It's
basically a paralytic.
these poor people.
Well, I mean, let me just pull it up. So it
Yeah.
was here. What is it? Cure. So here is this was his favorite one because what happened is a lot of times he tried to use earphones with the whole psychic like the hip like the sounds
Mm-hmm.
the words and basically what happened, yeah, it's Gottlieb, Sidney Gottlieb. uh that's correct, that's the last one, but that's the poison. But the problem
That's
was they kept on
crazy.
moving their heads, so he tried to put like basically football helmets with the mics in them
Mm-hmm.
and that poison too, but that's the poison.
Did he, Grandma Sherry wants to know, the guy that jumped to his death, is that how he unalived himself?
Yes, well, that was supposedly he jumped to his death, but it was later. I mean, you can actually read it in the history. I'll read it from the
Mm,
history thing, so I
okay.
don't misquote. So let me
Mm-mm.
see. One moment. It was
Kurare is how it's pronounced.
You're right. Yeah. So basically, this was the guy I'm talking about. It's called the Death of
Mm-hmm.
Frank Olson. It's from the history topics. You can actually go straight down. You could show it to them just so they have it. Basically, Frank Olson was a scientist who worked for the CIA at 1953. CIA retreat Olson drank a cocktail that had been secretly spiked with LSD, and a few days later, on November 28th, 1953, Olson tumbled to his death from a window of New York City hotel room in an alleged
Oh
suicide.
no.
The family of Frank Olson decided to have a second autopsy performed in 1994, and the forensics team found injuries on the body that had likely occurred before the fall. The findings sparked conspiracy theories that Olson might have been assassinated by the CIA. After a prolonged legal proceeding, Olson's family was rewarded a settlement of $750,000 and received personal apology from the president, Gerald Ford, and then CIA director William Colby.
The president was fully aware of these things.
Well, he was aware of it afterwards because you have to realize
Oh.
it was so secret of this project. Like sometimes the president, like what happened is the conspiracy theory is, and this is conspiracy theory.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of the reasons why Kennedy was killed. Basically,
Oh.
the thing is
Mm-hmm.
that Kennedy's father pissed off the mob because
Mm-hmm.
they were playing games with the mob. With like they made a promise, the father made a promise to the
Mm-hmm.
mob, and you can actually watch interviews about this. But he made promises to the mob that once my son becomes president, we'll help you out in the White House. And they kind of backstabbed. They lied about people that were snitches, and they killed like the wrong guys in the mob, and they
Mm-hmm.
were tired of them. And also, there was rumors that Kennedy wanted to get rid of the CIA.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so put two and two together. The CIA liked to work with the mob a lot,
It's so
and
weird, isn't it, that the CIA can do something and not let the president at that time know what they're
also, I
doing.
believe, I just want to make confirm,
I,
but I
I
believe
really thought the president would know things. Like know
just one.
what's doing in his country. It's a need to know base. Yeah, I can see, but I can see when it comes to civilians and stuff and other branches, but the president?
Yeah, well, the president is just like you think of a
He's a
president as a high position.
spokesperson for America.
Yeah, I mean, but you have to realize that most likely the president is just a popularity contest. The real
Mm,
people in power don't really give a shit about the president.
mm.
Think about it. I mean, the
This is
president gets
true.
voted in every 4 years. Who gives a shit? The
Mm,
CIA, the real power is the people behind it is in the shadows. So, like, if I'm basically like the CIA, the head of the
mm,
CIA, and I can have anyone I want killed,
mm.
I mean, who has the power?
True. No, you're right. You're right. It's just still weird. Because
Yeah, and
I think it's
also,
because when you grow up, you watch these movies like Independence Day and all these secretive movies, and the president always knows, always
yeah,
classified. And then in reality, it's obviously it's not the same, but you kind of feel like he know what the fuck's going on in his.
yeah, so yeah, he should. So
Mm-hmm.
basically, the project went until 1975 MK Ultra, and there's basically 150 sub projects. Now the problem with MK Ultra was that a lot of the subjects, some were volunteers, some were prisoners, and
Mm-hmm.
some did not even know they were in the projects.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Basically, that
Mm-hmm.
was what you heard about them. But yeah, there could have been more experiments. There could have been less. But usually they use psychedelic drugs, paralytics, electric shock therapy, things like that to figure it out, and hallucinogens. Now, one of the famous ones that people talk about a lot was called Operation Midnight Climax. Have you ever heard of Operation Midnight Climax?
No, it sounds interesting though with such a name. It seems like
Well,
it's like a doomsday climax. You think
no.
bang.
Well, it's a bang for sure.
Yeah.
Basically, I'm reading from Coffee or Die just so
Mm.
I'm
Yeah.
reading it quickly because obviously I'm not going to remember everything. But basically, in 1953, the CIA recruited female sex workers to lure men into upscale San Francisco bordellos, subject them to scientific experiments in mind control. The women gave every John, as the targets were known, a hefty dose of lysergic acid diethylamine, which is LSD,
Yeah.
in order to distort his senses and impair his judgment. In addition, LSD operatives sometimes used other psychotropic needles to say none of the clients consented to the drugs or the experimentation. The wall mirrors weren't merely decorative; they were one-way portals through which the CIA researchers studied their unsuspecting subjects under direct observation. In the book, you could Charles Manson in the CIA and the Secret History of the '60s, investigated journalist Tom O'Neill, which we're going to read his article because Tom O'Neill really looked into this subject a lot. Tom O'Neill. The goal of Midnight Climax was to see if LSD paired with sex could be used to coerce sensitive information from men, something of a psychedelic honeypot experiment.
Oh my
Now,
god.
that's why I always like.
That's the
That's
first
why.
thing that came in my mind was honeypot.
Yeah, that's why I always laugh. Like people say, "Oh, Epstein couldn't have done a honeypot thing." I'm like, okay, guys, they already did it in the '50s.
Yeah.
They could definitely do a honeypot if they wanted to. So basically, according to like the CIA grew fascinated with the kinky sex games and played out between the Johnson and workers. A lot of CIA agents would do that, and from behind the glass, the CIA agents could watch, listen, and usually through recording devices hidden in electric outlets, drink martinis all night as they took copious notes on their subjects. Operation Midnight Climax ran for 10 years from 1953 until the agency phased on the safe houses in 1963. They also opened safe houses in New York and San Francisco, basically, too. The operation had two upscale bordello operating in San Francisco, another one in Greenwich Village, New York City. The operation entirely defunct by 1965, but it was part of a more extensive mind control experimentation operation known as MK Ultra, run by the chemist spymaster Sidney Gottlieb that continued until 1972. Now, Sidney Gottlieb, I'm just going to type the name in just so people can see. You have the copy down there on the screen, right? I'm reading.
Huh? Excuse me? Say that again. You cut off at the end.
And if I'm reading too fast, guys, let me know. That's the
Okay.
name of Sidney Gottlieb. But yeah, and I'm reading from just so people can read it later. I'm going to put it in the chat one moment. I'm sorry, I didn't think about that before. Give me one
You're
second.
fine. You're fine.
That's the name of Sidney Gottlieb, which is also known as the Dark Sorcerer. We're going to read a little bit about
Oh,
him,
the
but
Black Sorcerer.
the Black Sorcerer. Okay, the
Yeah.
Black Sorcerer. Which, by the way, I mean, besides the fact of all the murdering and killing, that's a pretty cool nickname to give to.
It's a very
That's
Dungeons
like
and Dragons.
that is a very Dungeons and Dragons name. Before Dungeons and Dragons too. This is all before he got that name before
Oh, the
Dungeons and
Black
Dragons.
Sorcerer sign, was he based upon what was the character in Stranger Things? Papa? Papa?
Yeah. They
Was
based him. The Dark
Oh.
Sorcerer was based on Papa, basically.
Oh, Papa. He's a bastard. Go ahead, sorry. Continue.
Yeah. So, Midnight Con, this operation was headed by George Henry White, an underling of Gottlieb, who loved his job so much that he installed mini fridge and portable toilet and observation room, so he never missed a moment of action. One of the White House lieutenants, Ike Feldman, described him as a son of a bitch, but he was a great cop. In a note to Gottlieb, White later wrote, "I toiled wholeheartedly in the vineyards because it was fun, fun, fun. Where else could a red-blooded American boy lie, kill, cheat, steal, rape, pillage with the sanction and blessing of the All-Highest?" Sounds like a great guy.
Hey, David. He's on Facebook, just for people to know. Hey, David, I hope you're having a good Friday as well and keeping safe.
How you doing, Dave?
He's a good man.
Yep. Well, not the guy we're reading about.
Oh, not the
Dave's
guy
a
we're
good guy.
reading. I'm talking about David. He's a good man.
Dave's a good guy.
Yes.
White is not a good guy.
Yeah.
White is
Yeah.
not a good guy.
That's
But,
interesting. I didn't know that, like, the Stranger Things, that, like, Papa was...
yeah, here's the article here. Just Tony, just show him like the picture of the
Will you do a
street.
show on... Well, oh, David has a request. Will you do a show on the Dahmer series? I wouldn't mind doing that.
Yeah, I'll watch it. I mean,
I'll
like,
watch
I
it.
was thinking about doing it, but we'll see.
We'll
I
see.
think I'll have to watch it though.
We'll have to watch it this weekend. Maybe Monday, if not Friday.
Yeah, I gotta watch the whole thing, and I gotta take notes while watching it, though.
Same.
It's
But I wouldn't. That
so.
would be fun. Depends who you. Yeah, right. It's Dahmer. But yeah, I wouldn't mind talking about Dahmer.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. I'll watch it, see what it is. I mean, if it's gonna be like one of those documentaries that are like gonna idolize him, I won't do shit about. I don't like
It's
serial killers.
excellent. Evan Peters deserves yeah, poor Evan Peters. Everything that he plays, I know we're getting off subject. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
Everything he plays in, he's some super villain. He needs a good role. He needs a superhero role after this. But
Yeah.
apparently, this the Jeffrey Dahmer the show is through the eyes of the people who witnessed this and the people and the victims' eyes and
Oh,
like the
okay.
family and stuff. So it's actually I watched the first episode last night. It's really good. I would be interested in doing that. So yeah,
Yeah.
we'll marinate it.
Yeah. We might. I gotta watch it though.
Definitely.
So let me just pull up the coffee one again. One moment.
I like
I have a lot
talking
of
about
tabs.
weird things. Huh? No, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I have a lot of tabs open, so I'm just trying to pull it up because I lost it in
Oh,
the article.
take your time.
So you can show. I tossed the article, so you can scroll down to
Oop.
show like the neighborhood that they
Okay.
were in. That's like the picture on the bottom. So and the
Okay.
picture is like that was the area where the San Francisco bordello was. Basically, it says a Telegraph Hill of ritzy, expensive area in San Francisco. With housing prices already massively inflated, the area has apartments that cost upwards of $20 million. Though you're paying, yeah. So basically, that was the area where they did the basically Operation Midnight Climax. So, believing the Soviets were pursuing mind control techniques, I'm reading the article still.
Yep.
The medications, the CIA MK Ultra program experimented with a range of psychedelic drugs, composed of some 149 separate projects. I will reiterate, we don't know if it's only 149 because a lot of the records were destroyed
Mm-hmm.
before Gottlieb left. So he ordered them, a lot of them destroyed, and only some of them were found. The intelligence agency was fascinated by the program potentially applications, and particularly with conducting assassinations and interrogations. The project's broadest goal was to influence human behavior, O'Neill writes. Gottlieb launched the MK Ultra project in 1953 under CIA director Alan Dulles. And then the program was so secretive that when John McCune took over the CIA director in 1961, he wasn't told about it. When the MK Ultra, that's how secretive it was. The director didn't
Yeah.
even know about it. So when you're saying like, why does the president not know about it?
It's true.
If the
You're right.
CIA, like, that's how secretive. Because in there, you have to realize, the idea, like, let's think about paranoid Red Scare era.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, you believe the Russians are doing all these experiments.
Mm-hmm.
The red curtains up. You believe that there's a secret Cold War going on, and you believe that the Russians have developed mind control technology. And every single bit of technology can be stolen by the Russians, and that's pretty much the fear. So maybe, like, the president could, the fear, think about it. If the
Mm-hmm.
Russians could do mind control, maybe they can go after the president or senator. I mean, think about it. Imagine if you,
Kind of
yeah,
like you remember that movie Zoolander? Maybe
yeah,
not. Maybe not.
well,
It's like this.
it's a,
They
yeah,
brainwashed this model to take out
yeah,
Taiwan's.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's what it's based on. Man, that's the Manchurian candidate type of
Yeah.
idea. Yeah, that's where they got the idea from. But imagine if, like, let's say, like, think about it. This country's run by what? 1,000, let's say 2,000 people, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine if you could just grab 2,000 people, you
Mm-hmm.
brainwash them, and you suddenly taken over the entire country.
Mm-mm.
Not a shot fired. You just taken over the entire country. Boom. And then you just need to brainwash each and every single candidate and slowly just change all the laws to make it more prospective for you. So that was the fear back then. It was the fear that they would,
Mm-hmm.
something more powerful than a nuclear bomb.
Yeah.
That was the situation.
Now
So
these days, all you need to be is on Twitter and follow QAnon, and that's just a simple no LSD, no drugs, no nothing.
yeah, well, that started from the Satanic Panic type of deal. But
Yes.
so basically, Gottlieb launched the MK Ultra program. I'm trying to
In
read.
this picture that you guys see right here, this is the Sydney Gollop. I can't pronounce his
Gottlieb, or the Black Sorcerer.
the Black Sorcerer. So that's him.
Yeah, so the Black Sorcerer, he earned his nickname, the Black Sorcerer, because he developed gadgetry straight out of schlocky sci-fi, schlocky sci-fi, high
Hmm.
potency stink bombs, swizzle sticks laced with drugs, exploding seashells, poisoned toothpaste, poisoned handkerchiefs, poisoned cigars, poisoned anything. So you can imagine this. Imagine like getting drinks from this guy, knowing that he's poisoning everything and
It,
drugging everything,
it's so
and he's a
double
chem.
O Seven.
And also
Like,
he's a chem. He's also a chemist.
oh, obviously he's a chemist. If he's doing the poison thing, he's probably
So he's
producing the poison in
he's
his little lab. It reminds me of like when 007, before he goes on a mission, he meets up with the scientist guy and he's like, "What do you have for me?" And the guy's like, "We have poison cigarettes, we have poison hairspray, we have That's what it reminds me of. It's just so absurd.
yeah. Imagine like this guy is like literally a James Bond villain. To be completely honest with
Yeah.
you, like he is literally a James Bond villain. So yeah, I mean basically that's the Black Sorcerer right there. So
Mm.
anyway, I'm gonna so like you might think, oh, it's just a nice little old man. It's like
Uh-uh.
and
Mm-mm.
not maybe not. So Midnight Climax was only one program MK Ultra portfolio endeavors such as Project Bluebird, Project Artichoke, which we described it was the precursor to MK Ultra,
Yeah.
Operation Chaos, which I believe. Let me see. I think that had to do with something else. Give me a second.
Um, Q007. Grandma.
So, as the CIA Bordella in Telegraph Hill, a homeowners so whatever. So they actually bought. That'd be funny if they bought it from the CIA. So that was basically the whole climax thing. So another interesting is that they opened up safe houses as well. They opened up safe houses to give drugs. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention. I almost forgot to bring this up because I wanted to read the
Hmm.
article about diaries of a CIA operative. And this is basic.
Sorry, Grandma Sherry, right? I feel like this guy excessed in the poison.
Yeah, he was very, very big time in the poison. So basically, let me see. They would also randomly, this white guy we talked about, the guy we talked about that read that great quote about loving
Mm.
to rape and pillage and stuff,
Hmm.
he would use blackmail material people he would see, just random Johns. He would also, his men during Midnight Climax would just walk into bars and just drop LSD in people's random drinks.
It's so weird. And is
And
this
it's
the same thing that you were telling me about years ago about the CIA um, giving out drugs in the ghettos and stuff like that? Is this the
no,
same?
that's
No, this is
no.
a totally different thing.
Some people believe that LSD was released to like the whole hippie movement was because the CIA released LSD and stuff like that. But I could definitely say Operation like Contra
Yeah.
was definitely a result of the CIA because that was basically what happened was the CIA needed to raise money and funds. And this is the
Hmm.
80s, by the way. This is a completely separate operation.
Okay. Okay.
They needed to raise money and funds for basically rebels against the communists in
Yeah.
South America and stuff like that. So how do you raise money? Well, you sell drugs. Where do you
Hmm.
sell your drugs? The United States. So the CIA would ship cocaine to neighborhoods. Predominantly, the cocaine would trickle down to the black neighborhoods, and a lot of people believe that that was done to destabilize the black neighborhoods because they didn't want like a Martin Luther King or a Malcolm X to come out of there and completely destroy the black community, and also fuel to stop communist uprising, and stuff like that.
And this is all documented too. This is
Yeah,
declassified as well.
yeah, that's Contra. That's another operation. That's not
Hmm.
MK Ultra.
Okay,
Uh,
I
you,
just because it seems like the CIA is just like, hey, why don't we just give drugs to everybody? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's what the CIA is for now. It's just, hey, let's give drugs to people. Like
the concept.
LSD, cocaine. It's like they probably introduced mollies. I don't know.
Well, I mean, you have to realize that LSD came out in like '43, and they were just basically just they didn't know what the true applications were of it
Mm.
and they needed to do they thought it was like something that could be like a truth serum or something like that.
Oh yeah,
They
the
did,
famous truth serum thing. Yeah, no, I get
yeah,
it.
and it's kind of like they just want to experiment and they want to see. I mean, think about it. New drug comes out like this. Do you want to
Hmm.
do experimentations? It could be suddenly mind control. Russians are taking over and they think this drug is like a miracle drug, so they used it. They didn't just test LSD on people.
Hmm.
They tested other drugs like morphine, like basically any drug, alcohol, morphine, whatever drug, the barbiturates, whatever they could, they tested to see what it would work. If they can, like one of the tests was to see if they can addict people to drugs and make them do whatever they want.
Yeah.
That was part of MK Ultra as well. So they did about 150. Some was as simple as just seeing the psychological behavior. It was a very simple test. Some was extreme as like just grabbing people from an insane like from a mental health facility and then basically doing forced experiments on them.
It's fucking horrible. We treat our own kind worse and worse.
Yeah. So sorry, I was bathing in the kiddos. I hope I didn't miss much. No problem, Sue. No problem. So basically, the thing I want to read is about. It's called Diaries of a CIA Operative. Here's the. I'll toss it to Tony
Oh,
first.
okay.
Here you go. Diaries of a CIA Operative. I'm going to toss it in the chat.
Oh, Washington Post. We might have an issue there.
Oh, you can't show it?
Um, no.
I'll just read it.
Sometimes the Washington Post is like, you need to have a.
No, I can just read it. I have it. I can read it.
Okay.
It was a rock and he was a Rock'em and Sock'em cop, not overly carried away. This I think is talking about White.
Hmm.
Carried away with the playing spook, according to a friend who knew him at the time. But the diaries and personal papers of the Central Intelligence Agency operative who ran the safe houses in San Francisco of New York, in which drug-addicted prostitutes gave LSD and other drugs to unsuspected visitors, tell a different story. The diaries were kept by Cole George H, Colonel George H, I think it is, White alias Morgan Hall, a colorful federal narcotic agent and a CIA consultant, who died 2 years ago. The revealed new details include the names and dates about the safe house, project dubbed Operation Midnight Climax, which was part of the CIA MK Ultra program in 1950s and 1960s to manipulate human behavior. Curiously, White's widow donated his papers to the Electronic Museum of Foothill Junior College, a 2-year school set amidst the rolling Los Altos Hills 40 miles south of San Francisco. The papers are rare to find for anyone interested in the espionage business and show White dashing about the world, busting up narcotics rings in South America, Texas, San Francisco, and San Francisco Chinatown. They also provide documentary evidence that White met to discuss drugs, safe houses with each CIA luminaries as Dr. Sidney Gottlieb's head of Chemical Division of Technical Services Division. The man who ran MK Ultra and Dr. Robert V. Lashbrook, a CIA chemist who worked with LSD, other high-ranking CIA officials mentioned prominently including James Angleton, C.P. Campbell, and Stanley Lovell. Gottlieb and Lashbrook have been subpoenaed to testify on September 20 before Senate subcommittee investigating the MK Ultra project. This was a while ago, by the way.
Yeah.
Gottlieb proposed I be a CIA consultant, and I agreed. White wrote to his diary June 9th, 1952. A year later, it was confirmed a, quote, CIA got final clearance and signed contract as consultant. Met Gottlieb, lunch Napoleon's, met Ansingler. End quote. Harry C. Ansingler was White boss and number one man in the Federal Bureau of Narcotics. So isn't that kind of funny that the guy running the Federal Bureau of Narcotics is giving drugs to people randomly in the streets? Like, isn't that the most
For
insane
free?
fucking... Yeah, well, forget about for free. You're supposed to stop drugs from being given to people.
Well, yeah, it's just the whole entire thing. Because obviously the CIA made a profit out of this as well.
No, they didn't make a profit. They were paying. They were just giving the drugs for free, and they were paying the hookers. They had like a billing receipts for all the hookers they paid.
Oh.
So they weren't making money from this. They were just, this was part of, like, they had to submit bills. That's how this whole thing got found out. They didn't delete. They didn't destroy all the billing information. I think the project was like $25 or $35 million in total.
Oh my fuck.
Yeah,
That's
pretty much.
a lot of money.
Well, yeah, it was in total from 50 to from the start of the project to like I think like 74. So, totally. So I'm just reading the chat one moment. So Yeah, so that's kind of funny. That's like basically like the guy running to stop drugs from getting on the streets is literally opening up safe houses to force
Mm.
people to be on drugs to watch them while they have sex. That's some crazy shit, by the way.
I feel like
But
he
anyway,
was. I feel like he underlined was one of those. What are they called?
yeah.
What are they called?
Ethics,
No. Somebody who likes to watch people have
a boy. Yeah, yeah. Well, that was white.
Voyager.
No, voyeur or something like that. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so. But it's like I think that was white. So Harry C. Anslinger was White's boss, and okay, I read that one already. Uh, okay. So in fact, was tape recording and observing men of who to whom prostitutes gave drugs after picking them up, bars. But a July 20th, 1953 entry by White strongly suggests Anslinger knew knew. So the guy who's running the narcotics thing knew.
Yeah.
Arrived Washington, conferred with Anslinger and Gottlieb, CIA reimbursement for 3 men's services. End quote. I don't know what the 3 men's services is. I'm assuming that has to do with the prostitutes servicing 3 men.
I don't know.
So they were basically paying the prostitutes to sleep with the men and then paying for the drugs as well. Okay.
They wouldn't be
These
prostitutes if they weren't getting paid.
well, technically, yeah. Well, yeah, that's true. It just makes you wonder what happened to all these prostitutes. Did they like they no prostitutes has ever come forward.
Well, during this time too, the most likely to be murdered
Yeah.
would be a prostitute. If you really look into like serial killers and like missing people,
Boy,
sadly,
yeah.
prostitutes are the first ones to go because nobody will miss them. That's why I think prostitution should be legal.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was technically illegal with the CIA funding and blessing.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like as a whole. I mean, like a whole. It would protect them more because if prostitution
I'm
was
just,
legal,
I'm just
then
joking.
we could have
Yeah.
some good laws.
Yeah. These entries fit in with the 1963 internal report by then CIA Inspector General Layman Kirkpatrick about the MK Ultra project. The report, made a public in 1975, discussed the safe house operations and connections to the Bureau of Narcotics. The TSD Technical Service Division entered into an informal arrangement with certain cleared witting individuals in the Bureau of Narcotics in 1955, which provided for the release of MK Ultra materials for such testing as those individuals deemed desirable and feasible. The report added that while converting testing was being transferred to the Bureau, its chief would disclaim any knowledge of it. Quote, effectiveness of the substance on individuals at all social levels, high and low, Native Americans and foreign, end quote. Kirkpatrick wrote, quote, is of great significance in testing and has been performed on variety of individuals within these categories, end quote. So if no one understands what that means, is that they're just randomly testing LSD on random people, and of Native Americans, just random, and seeing how it works. So that's great.
Yeah,
Um,
Grandma Sherry says now they have government benefits. Yeah,
yeah,
they're
hope
working with the CIA most
if you
definitely.
want, or they could have been all killed.
That too. It kind of makes me wonder what is the CIA doing now?
Well, that's the question a lot of people have on their minds.
We're not gonna know until 50 years after, just like this.
Well, they knew about this 20 years by accident.
Oh,
Later, so. 1953, White rented a house in 80. So the address was 81 Bedford Street in New York City, Greenwich Village, under the name of Morgan Hall, the same one he used several years later to set up the Telegraph Hill apartment in 225 Chestnut Street in San Francisco. His diaries show that Gottlieb and Lashbrook met him at the Bedford Street apartment. In a June 8th, 1953 entry said Gottlieb brings $4,123.27 for Hall. Deposit $3,400. September 16th entry added Lashbrook at 81 Bedford, Owen Wrinkle, and LSD surprise. Can wash. Interesting entry there. In 1955, White moved the safe house to San Francisco and took over a regional head of the Bureau of Narcotics. So the guy who's handing out fucking drugs to people and drugging them on willing is now the head of the narcotics? Like, what the fuck?
I'm
I
a little
didn't.
curious what the can wash means.
Who's the new head? Like, I'm wondering if like the new head of narcotics is doing the same fucking thing.
You
You
never
know,
know. That's the
like,
crazy thing.
does he have stock in like fucking like all these drug companies? What the hell? But that is so wild to me if you think about it. Now they have government. Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know.
I wouldn't
So
be
in 19,
surprised if they had their fingers on the fentanyl crisis that we are going through right now.
who knows? That could be another project. You might be dead tomorrow, accidentally suicide yourself by stabbing yourself 108 times in your back.
Well, everybody knows if anything ever happens to me, Murphy did it.
Yeah. In 1955, White moved his safe house in San Francisco and took over regional head of Bureau of Narcotics. Apparently, the Chestnut Street duplex also was used by the Bureau to lure narcotics dealers and then arrest them.
Oh, pecan pie, you're right. I mean, Big
Oh
Pharma,
my
I'm telling you, Big
god!
Pharma, everybody has their hands in the pie except us. You know what I mean? Like, it's just insane. And you're right. Doctors just throw that shit out like it's fucking candy, especially the
Bro,
patches. I find those
did
patches
you
everywhere.
did you read that? Did you hear that part? They literally lured narcotics dealers and then arrest them at the same place they're handing out free narcotics to people. 1956, white narcotics agent R.F. Feldman, who posed as an East Coast mobster, arrested 7 San Franciscans as part of a heroin ring. Leo Jones, a friend of White, owned the company that installed the bugging equipment at the apartment. The equipment included 4 DD4 microphones disguised as a wall atlas. These were hooked up to the Model F301 tape recorders monitored by agents in listening posts adjacent to the apartment. Jones also sold White a portable toilet for observation post. It was an L-shaped apartment with a beautiful view of San Francisco Bay. And White, who kept pictures of chilled martinis in the refrigerator, also had photos of manacled women being tortured and whipped.
Oh, yeah. That's somebody who I would like to work with.
The CIA, like, holy
that's
shit.
definitely. And you know what, Pecan, you're right. I always found the fentanyl thing to be a little bit crazy, especially since America's going through an opiate crisis. That they're like, hey, instead of taking a Percocet or a Vicodin, here's a fucking fentanyl patch, or here's some fentanyl. Like,
Yeah.
just they make it worse before they. It's just horrible.
So, yeah, this is a real
Hey,
great guy to.
Burden.
Hi, Bird. You just missed about how great the White House, the Mr. George White is. He's running the narcotics, stopping narcotics coming in, and then suddenly is actually giving narcotics to people. Quote, we were contacted by George White, Jones, end quote. Jones said in an interview, quote, it was the combined project of the CIA Bureau of Narcotics. It was always referred to as the pad, never the apartment, and was modeled after Playboy magazine 1955. I heard about prostitutes Feldman had acquired 3 of or 4 to set himself up with cover, end quote.
You know
White,
he was having sex with them too.
oh, they were having sex with the prostitutes.
Yeah.
Actually, that was actually confirmed. They were having sex with the prostitutes, the CIA agents. They were drinking. They were basically
like
partying.
was it like an experimentation
No,
documented? They
no.
wouldn't experiment on themselves, but go ahead.
No, I mean, no,
you
they
know.
would take it. I mean, like the CIA agents would party. So a lot of times it was documented they would take LSD and they would have sex with prostitutes
It
on their
reminds me.
downtime.
It doesn't. When you say that, it reminds me of that scene in Wolf in Wall Street, while they're doing the stocks and stuff, and there's like people working, people throwing stuff, and then there's just like one guy on his desk fucking the girl from behind. It's like
Yeah.
that's what it reminds me of. Is just like a work environment that's just completely chaotic.
Yeah, this is just one project out of 149 guys. Just imagine.
I wonder
So-
what they're doing now. I
They're both, well, the CIA, if you knew what they were doing now, the CIA, you'd be dead. So, luckily you don't know.
Yeah.
White's diaries indicates that Gottlieb continued to visit the flying out from Washington several times a year, at least until, and if you don't know who Gottlieb is, he's called the Black Sorcerer. And he basically poisons everything around him, and he likes drugging LSD into his co-workers' drinks. And he's generally an evil prick that ran the CIA. At least until 1961. Another visitor was John Gittiger, a CIA psychologist who testified last month before a Senate investigative committee that he met with Morgan Hall, aka Morgan Hall is the white guy. That's his alias.
His alias is the white guy.
No, Arius. White's his last name. His real last name is White.
Oh, okay.
And Morgan Hall is his alias that he uses to rent the.
Yeah.
Yeah, that he rents the apartments and runs the prostitutes and giving out LSD to unwitting people, unwilling people. Numerous occasions to interview prostitutes about their drug and sex habits. White retired from the Bureau in 1965 and became a fire marshal in Stinson Beach, a resort area in Marin County, north of San Francisco. Among the papers in September 30th, 1970, letters to Dr. Harvey Perelson, then chief of the Department of Psychiatry of the University of California at Berkeley. He told Perelson that he had worked for a rather obscure department of the government that, parentheses, that would like to remain obscure, close parentheses, end quote. That obscure department, White wrote, quote, was then interested in obtaining some factual information and data on the use and effects of various hallucinogens, including marijuana, tetrahydrocannabinol. Let me just see if there's a simpler version. So the audience, because I could not
There
even.
has to be an abbreviation.
Yeah, there has to be an abbreviation for drug. Give me one moment just to pull it up.
Every drug has like 3 nicknames, anyways.
Okay, so it's principal psychoactive constitutes of a cannabis and one of the least 113 total cannabinoid identified plant. Okay, so is psychoactive substance that produces the high associated with smoking marijuana and can also lead to central nervous system.
Oh, it's spice.
What?
It's spice.
Oh, okay. So that's what it is. See,
Yeah, it's called spice. It's synthetic.
yeah.
Yeah, never do that. We live in 2022.
Well,
now.
let's
Nobody
see.
should be smoking synthetic. You can get the real shit at a dispensary.
And then brand new LSD tests were made under both clinical and non-clinical conditions on both witting and unwitting subjects. That means people who were willing volunteered and those who did not volunteer. White said in the letter to Perelson he was interested enough to try the drugs himself. Well, we know that. Quote, so far as I was concerned, clear thinking was non-existent while under the influence of any of these drugs, he wrote. I did feel at times that I was having a mind-expanding experience, but this vanished like a dream immediately after the session. He said the tests were observed by psychiatrists, psychologists, and pharmaceuticalists. Not all of White's diary entries involve clandestine meetings with narcotics or CIA agents, or addicts and prostitutes for that matter. His daily records in the Eisenhower and Nixon won in 1952 that in the Brooklyn Dodgers took the National League baseball pennant in 1955. So he wrote mundane bullshit. Yeah, he talks about his bird, he just talks about, let's go back to the actual shit that we care about, not his daily life. White born in 1906 started out as an interactive journalist working for the newspapers in San Francisco and Los Angeles before becoming a narcotics agent. I think they misspelled it. In the early 1930s. During World War II, he was in the Office of Strategic Services and the procurer of the CIA, where he acquired the rank of lieutenant colonel and made a future contacts. After that, he went back to narcotics work, interrupting it in the early 1950s to become an investigator for the Surrett Committee headed by Senator Est Kerferover, and that looked into the organization and crime. Let me just see the chat one moment. Synthetic so much cheaper. Yeah, probably, but I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do any drugs, to be honest with you, but that's how I... Lewis, what's wrong with that? What the white guy is great of a sport. What's wrong with that? The white guy is basically the name. That's his last name, basically. He was a guy that worked as the head of narcotics, who basically was Operation Midnight Climax. That basically was putting LSD into unwilling John's drinks, working with prostitutes, and also using the pad to arrest people in conjunction with the other agencies and also doing other terrible shit. So yeah, he went by Hall as his AKA name. But one interesting detail, White, sorry. One interesting detail links White to the 1953 case of Frank Olson, an Army employee who was working with the CIA in Camp Deltrick. MD Olson had been given LSD without being told, and 10 days later jumped to his death from the 10th floor of New York City Hotel. At the time, Lashbrook was in the room with Olson, and who had gone to New York to be treated by Dr. Harold Opperson, a psychiatrist who had worked for the CIA. According to the CIA documents, Lashbrook called Gottlieb, his supervisor at the time, and then went to the police station to identify the body. He was asked to turn out his pockets. He had written on the piece of white paper the initials GW and MH. Lashbrook was asked to identify whose initials they were, but expunged CIA documents said he could not for security reasons. However, knowledgeable sources who have seen the CIA documents said that Lashbrook identified GW as George White and MH as Morgan Hall, White's undercover name. The piece of paper also continued the address of 81 Bedford Street, which we just talked about, which is White's diary shows to be the New York safe house. White apparently knew Aberson because of September 20th, 1954 diary entry contained reference to Gottlieb and Aberson. So basically, if you don't realize this, the guy we talked about that quote-unquote suicided himself from the 10th floor and got beat up before he got tossed out and they ruled a suicide, probably was killed by this guy. Tony?
It's just fucking insane that they would do all this for the extent of just mind controlling. I 100% believe all of this. It's just mind blowing the extent that they would go to try to control someone, like to make somebody a slave.
Yeah. Yeah, I have not wrote the article. Please do not assassinate me, CIA.
Yeah, Mom is trying to help because Mom lived in Germany.
Yeah. So basically, like, that was midnight. That was called Operation Midnight Climax, and it was pretty fucked up. It was pretty bad, and that's actually not as bad as we're going to go into next. Now, we talked a little bit about the sleep room now, and we talked about the situation there. Actually, there was one more thing I forgot to talk about. Let me see. Yeah. There was another situation where Tom O'Neill, the guy we talked about, the article we read before, talks about a situation that happened in July 4th, 1954. The article is called Inside the Archives of the LSD Researchers with the Ties to CIA MK Ultra Mind Control Project. And basically, let me just put the article here. I'm going there. Let me just look here. I know Baz.
Are you talking about the Ryan Church thing?
No. I don't know what that. Let me see. I'm trying to read the article. Oh no, that was nothing. It was something else. I think they're talking about something else. Inside the archives of an LSD researcher with ties to the CIA MK Ultra Mind Control Project. By the way, Tom O'Neill does a interview with Joe Rogan. He actually talks about MK Ultra. He does a pretty good job discussing it. If you ever want to watch him talk, because he has a lot of deep understanding. I mean, he goes into a lot of detail. So it's actually pretty interesting. You can actually look up Tom O'Neill. He definitely is the number one authority about MK Ultra and that stuff because he's pulled up all the records and looked at them. So if you ever want to actually really do a more deep dive by yourself to look into other things, Tom O'Neill's your guy. So on the night of July 4th, 1954, San Antonio, Texas, was shaken by a rape and murder of a 3-year-old girl. The man accused of these crimes were Jimmy Shaver, an airman at the nearby Lackland Air Force Base with no criminal record. Shaver claimed to have lost his memory of the incident. The victim, 3-year-old Cher Jo Horton,
Jesus, 3 years old.
had disappeared around midnight outside the Air Force Base, where her parents had left her in the parking lot outside a bar. She played with her brother while they had a drink inside. When they noticed her missing, they formed a search party. Within an hour, the group came upon a car parked next to a gravel pit. Cher's underwear was hanging from one of the car's doors. Shaver wandered out of the darkness. He was shirtless, covered in blood, scratches, making no attempt to escape. He let the search party walk him to the edge of the highway. Bystanders described him as dazed and in a trance-like state. What was going on here? End quote. Question mark. Inside the quote. Sorry. He asked. He didn't even seem drunk, but he couldn't say where he was, how he gotten there, or whose blood was all over him. Meanwhile, the search party found Horton's body in the gravel pit. Her neck was broken, her legs had been torn open, and other things. Let's just say.
Oh my god.
The article, you can read that. I don't want to read that out loud. Deputies arrested Shaver at 29, and he was recently remarried with 2 children, and no history of violence. He had been at the same bar Horton and had been abducted from, but he had been at the same bar Horton and had been abducted. He'd been at the same bar Horton had been abducted from, but he left with a friend who told the police that neither of them was drunk. Though Shaver had seemed high on something, before deputies could take Shaver to the county jail, a constable from another precinct arrived with orders from the military police to assume custody of him. Around 4 that morning, an Air Force marshal questioned Shaver. 2 doctors examined him, agreeing he wasn't drunk. One later testified that he probably was not normal. He was very composed outside, which I did not expect him to be under these circumstances. End quote. He was released to the county jail and booked for murder. Let's just assume it's the R word.
Yeah.
Investigators interrogated Shaver through the morning. When his wife came to visit, he didn't recognize her. He gave his first statement at 10:30 a.m., adamant that another man was responsible. He could summon an image of a stranger with blonde hair and tattoos. After the Air Force Marshal returned to the jailhouse, however, Shaver signed a second statement taking full responsibility and he still didn't remember anything. He reasoned he must have done it. 2 months later, in September, Shaver's memory still hadn't returned. The commander of the base hospital, Colonel Robert S. Bray, ordered a psychiatric evaluation to be performed by Dr. Louis Jolyon West, the head of the psychiatric services at the airbase. It fell to West to decide if Shaver had been legally sane at the time of the murder. Now, I know you guys are wondering, why am I reading a murder from 1953? But we're going to get to there. I got to lay down context a little bit. Shaver spent the next 2 weeks under West's supervision. They returned to the scene of the crime, trying to jog his memory. Later, West hypnotized Shaver, gave him an injection of sodium pentothal, or truth serum, to see if he could clear his amnesia. While Shaver was under, according to testimony, he recalled events that night. He confessed to killing Horton. She brought out repressed memories of his cousin, Beth Rainbow, who sexually abused him as a child. Shaver had started drinking at home that night when he had visions of God, who whispered into his ear to seek out and kill the evil girl Beth.
Oh my god, the 3-year-old.
Well, we'll get there. At the trial, West made only a minimal effort of exonerating Shaver. The airman was found guilty through the appeals court and later ruled that he'd had an unfair trial. He was convicted, though an appeals court later ruled that he'd had an unfair trial. He was convicted again in the retrial in 1958 on the 33rd birthday. He was executed by electric chair and maintained his innocence the whole time. The trial, which hinged on Shaver's testimony, might have ended differently had the jury known about West's past. That's the guy who looked at him, the psychiatrist. According to the newly surfaced papers from West's archives, the psychiatrist had some of the clearest, most nefarious ties of any scientist in the CIA project MKUltra. West's files, especially his correspondence with the CIA longtime poison expert Sidney Gottlieb, shed new light, or the dark source of the Black Sorcerer, aka the Black Sorcerer, shed new light on the one of the most infamous projects in agency history, likely compromising more than 150 sub-projects and at least 185 researchers working at institutions across America and Canada. MKUltra was, the New York Times put it, a secret 25-year, $25 million effort by the CIA to learn how to control human minds. An experiment violating international laws, not to mention the agency's charter, which forbids domestic activities. At trial, let me just check the comments before I continue to read. Hey Bushes, did we all give drugs to mind control? The like button. Let's not. Yeah, probably. We got to give drugs to mind control. That's a great point, Grandma Sherry. Everyone, Tony, make sure to give LSD to everyone to mind control and hit the like button. But anyway, West maintained, at trial, West maintained that Shaver had suffered a bout of temporary insanity at night of Sheriff J. Horton's killing. But he argued that Shaver was quite sane now. In the courtroom, Shaver didn't look that way. One newspaper account said he sat through the strenuous sessions like a man in a trance, saying nothing, never rising to stretch or smoke through. He was known to chain smoker. Large portions of West Truth Serum interview with Shaver were read into the court record. The doctor had used leading questions to walk the entrance Shaver through this crime. Quote, "Tell me about when you took your clothes off, Jimmy," end quote, he said. The transcript of the interview, which survived among West's papers, also showed West trying to prove that Shaver had repressed memories. Quote, "Jimmy, do you remember when something like that happened before?" End quote. Or, quote, "After you took her clothes off, what did you do?" End quote. Or, quote, "I never did take her clothes off," Shaver said. End quote. The interview was divided into thirds and middles. Third hadn't been recorded. The transcript picked up, it said, Shaver is crying. He has been confronted with all the facts repeatedly. West asked, quote, "Now you remember it all, don't you, Jimmy?" End quote. Quote, "Yes, sir." End quote, Shaver replied. Through the lawyers scrutinized Shaver's medical history, a little mention was made of the base hospital where West achieved letters indicate that he had conducted his MKUltra experiments. Shaver had suffered from migraines so debilitating that he dunk his head in a bucket of ice water, and when he felt one coming on, his condition was severe enough that the Air Force had recommended him for a 2-year experimental program. The doctor who attempted to recruit him was not named in the court records or transcripts. On the stand, West said that he never gotten around to seeing whether Shaver had been treated in the experimental program. Just one moment. I'll be right back. Tony, just give him a minute. I just gotta run to the bathroom. One moment.
Okay. Take your time, man. Hey, Bushes. Sorry. I had to type that. I didn't want to interrupt him reading. This is screwed up. And imagine what they're doing now. It's insane. If it's not one thing, it's another. And just to mind control people. There's also like a sleep experiment thing as well, which hopefully we can get to. The infograph show.
It strips you.
The infograph show actually has really good videos on this and other things as well. When it comes to the CIA, they have a whole CIA project, Strange and Other Declassified Secrets, which I want to watch. This is one of the ones I haven't watched, but I usually follow the infograph show. LSD, is that acid from... It's a little different. It's a little different. I would say LSD is probably like 2 steps higher from acid.
Yeah. But, yeah, welcome back. Hi, guys.
Welcome back, Mom.
So now, let me explain something to you guys so far. Guy had debilitating headaches. He needed to go for an experimental treatment. I just explained to you how the CIA likes to grab random people that have phantom leg pains or whatnot. So,
Mm.
That's very
Yeah,
weird.
LSD. Hold on, high bushes. Yes, yes. LSD is acid. I heard LSD was a little bit more stronger than paper strip acid. I guess it
Yeah,
depends on where you get it.
I guess you would know the
I
answer to
guess
that.
if you get it from the CIA, you're probably getting like
You're getting
potent
the pure
shit.
stuff. Yeah, you're getting the
Yeah,
pure stuff. Just like the cocaine in Contra in the
yeah.
80s. You're getting the pure
You're
stuff.
getting the actually coca. Yeah.
Uh, I'm going to continue reading. Through lawyers scrutinized Shaver's medical history, little mention was made of the base hospital where Royce achieved letters indicate he had conducted his MK Ultra. So the experiments were being done. He gets a headache. He goes into the experiment, and then suddenly he's got a word from God saying going after to kill the little girl, the evil little girl, or whatever.
Mm-mm.
Sounds like a trigger word or some kind of a failed experiment, and then he
Mm-hmm.
goes there, performs kind of like fucks with this guy's head to cover his tracks
Mm-mm.
because the experiment failed in his MK Ultra and he didn't want to have it revealed. That's my thought process when I'm reading this
Yeah.
article. Yeah, are you thinking the same thing?
That's your theory. Is that what?
This is not like this part is
Yeah.
definitely like speculation. This is based upon what we're reading the facts here, but it's speculation on whether MK Ultra had anything to do with the
Uh,
murder. But it's very, very, you can basically say it kind of makes sense. Like think about it.
yeah.
Guy was probably experimented on by West, and then basically something went wrong with the experiment. He kills a little girl. He's panicked. He's like, oh, fuck. The project's going to get revealed.
Yeah.
Uses his connections to be the doctor. Gives him enough medications to fucking wipe his mind and convince him and
Mm-mm.
change his memories around to basically make him admit that he killed the person. Had him admit that he's sane. And then basically sat back and let the justice system do the killing for him.
Mm-mm.
That's my thought process. That could be different from other people.
Because of all this, there's a 3-year-old little girl who's not with us that did not have a
Well,
life.
yeah. So, well, and we'll continue reading. There's more.
Mm-hmm.
On the stand, West said that he never gotten around seeing whether the shaver had been treated for the experimental program. The program from his headache that,
Mm-mm.
get my point?
Yeah.
Lackland officials told me there was no record of him in their master index patients. But curiously, according to the base archivist, all the records for the patients in 1954 had been maintained with one exception. The file for the last names beginning with SA through Saint had vanished. They just magically disappeared, guys. These files, they just magically disappeared. A little girl gets murdered, and, you got to kind of cover your tracks for,
Mm-mm.
experiments,
It
just saying.
sounds like a panicked. It sounds like a panic, like disaster control.
Yeah.
Like they were
Wes,
really trying to hide.
yeah, Wes' professional fascination with practically as old. Oh, okay. Wes' professional fascination with LSD was practically as old as the drug itself. For several decades, he was one of the elite cadre of scientists. I gotta look up that word because now I don't even know what that word means. Uh,
What is
let me
it
just
called?
cadre. Okay, small group. They gotta be fancy with these goddamn words. They can't just say small group. They have to be cadre. Whatever, guys. Guys, this is why you
Why
get
do you
the
people have to be so goddamn bougie?
yeah,
Just say small group.
yeah, like make it simple for us, like people that went to public school, please.
Right.
Yeah, of scientists using small group of scientists. I'm interpreting it for you, using it in top secret research. LSD. I hate when they say the scientific name of LSD. They like the sargic acid diethylphenide. It's like, can you just say LSD
Harmony.
for us, please? LSD was synthesized in 1938 by the chemical Switzerland's Sandoz Industries, but it was not introduced as a pharmaceutical until 1947. In the 50s, when the CIA began to experiment on humans with it, it was a new substance. Albert Hoffman, the Swiss scientist who discovered its hallucinogenic qualities in 1943, described it as a sacred drug that gestured towards the mystical experience of the deeper comprehensive reality. Let me see if I'm trying to look for the part that I want to
Mm.
read. Okay, very few people took to Westwood seems sad. Okay. West seems to have used the chemical liberally in the medical practice, and his tactics left the indelible mark on the psychiatrists who worked with him. One of them is Gilbert Rose, was so baffled by Shaver's case that he went to write a play about it. That's
A
weird.
fucking play?
Okay.
They were, you know, there's one rule. There is one rule to the drug game. Don't get high on your own supply, because you end up making a play. That was stupid.
That was stupid, bro.
That was stupid. They're getting high on their own supply, and this is what's happening.
Yeah, so in 19, quote, in my 50 years of profession, that was the most dramatic moment ever. When he clapped his hands in the face that he remembered killing the girl, Rose said in 2002 of Shaver in the Truth Serum interview. But Rose was shocked when I told him that West had hypnotized Shaver in addition to giving him sodium pentothal. Hypnotism, he said, was not part of the protocol for the interview. By the way, hypnotism was part of the MK Ultra's test, by the way, the sub-project, so just putting that out there. He never known how West had found out about the case right away. I have a theory why he found out about the case right away. Quote, we were involved from the first day, end quote, Rose recalled. Quote, Jolly phoned me the morning of the murder initiated, end quote. West claimed he was in the courtroom the day Shaver was sentenced to death. Around this time, he became vehemently opposed to capital punishment. Okay, so let's go down to almost as soon as they had access to it, the government. I'm trying to look for the part. I'm trying to skip the stuff. I'm trying to look up. So basically, also the. All right, let me just read this part so you know what happened. I'm sorry for a little bit. I'm just reading while I'm quiet. So sorry about that, guys. I'm a little quiet. Okay. West assessment. Okay, so I'm going to read this part. When the American PODs returned to the army, this is after the Korean situation, brought in a team of scientists to deprogram them. Among those scientists was this is the Koreans this is the soldiers that came back to Korea that were sympathetic to the communists. Then among those scientists was West, born in Brooklyn, 1924. So this is just giving you an idea that he was part of MK Ultra. He had enlisted in the Air Force to do. I'm just trying to read. When he got out, he researched the methods of controlling human behavior at Cornell University. He would later claim to have studied 83 prisoners of war, 56 of whom had been forced to make false confessions. He and his colleagues were credited with reinterrogating the POWs into Western society, and maybe more important, getting them to renounce their claims about having used biological weapons. By the way, guys, a little bit of a spoiler. We did use biological weapons in Korea. So to make this really dark, these soldiers came back. They did biological weapons in North Korea during the Korean War, and they were sympathetic. And then the government said, "Well, we can't have you say the truth, so we're going to brainwash you, so you lie to everyone." So just to put that out there, so anyone wonders why they were kind of keeping this silent. What is the questions you got? What do you particularly want? Let me see. Okay, any questions? No questions. Okay.
No questions.
Yeah, I don't know why the articles they just don't use simple words for people. Like, geez, Louise.
They're bougie.
They're bougie. Yeah, I like the word you use. So, West discussed with the POWs gained him entrance into the upper echelon of the intelligence community. Galeb, the poison expert. I love how guys should have a villain arc. Honestly, there needs to be a show about this guy because I feel like there would be a great Netflix show. Oh, well, not a pretend show. Yeah, but that's not real. I mean, maybe it's real.
Maybe it's real. You don't, maybe it's. I do not put it past it. I do not at all.
Who headed the chemical division of the CIA Technical Services staff, along with Richard Helms, the CIA Chief of Operations for Director of Planes and Director of Plans.
Are they using fancy words again?
Yeah, had convinced the agency that
Bastards.
Director Alan Dulles that the mind control ops were the future. Initially, the agency wanted only to prevent further potential brainwashing by the Soviets, but the defensive program became offensive one. Operation Bluebird morphed into Operation Artichoke and search for all-purpose truth serum. In a speech to Princeton University, Dulles warned that the communist spies could turn the American mind into a photograph playing a disc put on its spindle by the outside genius. End quote. Just days after those remarks, on April 13, 1953, he officially set Project MK in motion. Little is known about the program. After Watergate, Helms, who by that time was the CIA director, ordered Gottlieb to destroy all MK papers. In January 1973, the technical services staff shredded countless documents describing the use of hallucinogens. In the mid-70s...
Did you say that was during Watergate? The Watergate scandal? Is that what you said?
After Watergate.
After Watergate. Okay, sorry, continue.
In the mid-1970s, after the Times revealed the existence of MK its front page, the government launched 3 separate investigations, all of which were hobbled by the CIA destruction of the files. Vice President Nelson Rockefeller's Commission on the CIA Activities within the United States, 1975, Senator Frank Church's Senate Select Committee to study the government operations with respect to intelligence activities, 75 to 76, and Senators Edward Kennedy and Daniel, I'm not even going to say that fucker's name, Joint Senate Select Committee hearing on the project. MK the CIA program of research and behavioral modification in 1977, and when records were available, they were redacted, and when witnesses were summoned to testify about before Congress, they were forgetful. Imagine that, guys. They were forgetful. Don't you know that?
I forgot.
Under the umbrella, how did you forget? Like, under the umbrella were at least 149 sub-projects, many involving research on unwitting participant. Gottlieb, who was of aptitude a moralist, earned him the nickname the Black Sorcerer. Developed gadgetry straight out of the shock room. So, we went through that. But basically, poison toothpaste, stink bombs, swizzle sticks laced with drugs, exploding seashells.
He had a kink with poison.
Yeah, he liked poison a lot. I have persuaded the Indianapolis pharmaceutical company to replicate the Swiss formula for LSD. The CIA had limitless domestic supply of the favorite new drug. The agency hoped to produce couriers who could hide hidden messages in their brains to implant false memories and remove the true ones in people without their awareness, to convert groups to opposing ideologies, and more. The loftiest objective was the creation of hypno-programmed assassins.
God.
I wonder if they were successful. They said they weren't successful, but we'll see.
It's so crazy.
I don't recall exactly. That was the whole plan. They don't recall.
It's a cop out. I don't recall. I don't.
Or maybe they do. Maybe
the fifth.
Maybe they really don't remember. Maybe their minds are wiped by MK. Who knows?
They were getting high on their own supply. I mean, seriously. I
but
understood hallucinants.
Yeah, but their work encompassed everything from electronic brain stimulation to sensory deprivation to induced pain, psychosis. They sought ways to cause heart attacks, severe twitching, intense cluster headaches. I wonder if that sounds familiar, guys. Intense cluster headaches, huh? If the drugs didn't do the trick, they tried to master ESP, ultrasonic vibrations, and radiation poisoning. One project tried to harness the power of magnetic fields. MK was highly classified that when McCone succeeded Dulles as a CIA director late 1961, he was not informed of the existence until 1963. Fewer than half a dozen agency brass were aware of any period during the 20-year history.
Wiped memories.
Yeah.
It's insane.
So, it's pretty fucking insanity. Let me see.
It kind of reminds me of, Nazi Germany with those mad scientists that would do these crazy experiments on, twins or children and adults, and it's just so crazy. Yeah, so now we talked about. Let me see. Granted, that's worse than what's happening here in this discussion, but it's just that same level of So crazy. To
It,
your own people.
well, it is what I mean. That's their thought process. They thought the you know ends justify the means. That was the thought process.
Mm-mm.
So now you might say, like, what do you mean about Manson?
Oh my goodness.
Okay. What do you mean, like, how is Manson related to this? Now our next article is Coffee and Die again, of course. Here's the article. One moment. Let me put it in the Facebook group. Let me just pull it up again. Let me
Is
read
that the
it.
coffee or die one?
Yeah, this is another Coffee and Die one. This is about Manson. Let me just pull. I gotta find it now. So many articles open. Okay. So Charles Manson's murderous cult made their mark in American pop culture, inspiring the 1990. Skip some shit. Okay. Mind control program. MK Ultra was possible. O'Neill asked that the Manson murders were part of an MK Ultra experiment gone wrong. Schifrin responded, no. An MK Ultra experiment gone right. Manson's cult killed itself. Manson's cult called itself the family. Let me read that whole thing again so people can get it. Okay. In 2019, a book, Chaos Charles Manson, the CIA and the Secret History of the 60s, author Tom O'Neill asked the forensic psychologist Alan Schiffin about the potentially tragic consequences of the CIA experimental mind control program, MKUltra. Was it possible? O'Neill asked that the Manson murders were part of an MKUltra experiment and gone wrong. Schiffin responded, no. MKUltra experiment gone right. Manson's cult called itself the family. So basically, his thought process it went right. It's home on old. I'm trying to jump a little.
Well, if he thought it went right, then he was checking on Manson. Like, why would you let a test subject just run away?
Well, who's to say that? Well, we're gonna read. You're gonna see it.
And he just allowed Manson to kill Tate.
Well, wait. I'm gonna try to get them. I'm trying to jump like the intro because we all know about the Manson murders. We all know what happened. We all that. Okay, so let me start by here. By 1967, Manson, then 32 years old, had spent half his life in prison for myriad of crimes, including raping a boy. Following his parole that year from California Terminal Island prison, Manson ultimately made his way north of San Francisco while the Bay Area. Manson's inglorious life path took turn for the truly bizarre, intersecting with the four different CIA-funded drug research studies. His participation in two has since been confirmed. Manson's parole officer, Berkeley doctorate student named Roger Smith, was part of the federally funded program researching LSD drug use among San Francisco population. He is positioned as a parole officer to allow Smith to provide an element of immunity to his unwitting research subjects. Although he had the power to send Manson back to prison for violating the terms of his parole, Smith never reported the cult leader's numerous infractions. Thus, Manson remained free and hooked on drugs. Roger Smith's tenure at the Haight-Ashbury Free Medical Clinic allowed him to collaborate with David Smith, no relations, a medical doctor with pharmacology experience and a founder of the clinic in exchange for federal funding. Let me just give you this. I forgot to give it to Tony. Here's the article, just so you can show it to the screen, because I got to show you the Ashbury Free Medical Clinic. It closed down a couple of months later, by the way, after the Manson murder. Surprise, surprise, guys. Oh, the paperclip. Yeah, that's an interesting one.
You mean the med clinic? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, the one I said that. Yeah, you can
Yeah.
scroll down. Yeah, you can just scroll and show that to them.
Yeah, it's on the.
Well, that was his opinion. That's,
YouTube.
and I want to read the article why he thinks it went right, and we're just going to go through it. So, Roger Smith to Hoyt-Ashbury Free Medical Clinic allowed him to collaborate with David Smith, no relation to each other, a medical doctor with pharmacological experience and the founder of the clinic. In exchange for federal funding, courtesy of the CIA, the pair researched recreational drug use among their patients. Soon enough, the clinic doctors and clinicians began to recognize the frequent presence of a young runaway and addicts who belonged to Manson's cult. An assistant researcher named Alan Rose took the initiative to visit Manson's family Los Angeles compound, where he used drugs and participated in bizarre sexual rites. After 4 months of immersive research, Rose returned to San Francisco in 1970. Rose and David Smith co-authored the first scholarly study of Manson family, the group marriage, commune, and case study. Another of the clinic's researcher, Lewis Jolly West. Remember West, guys? You know West, the guy who, covered up the murder of that little girl?
Mm-hmm.
Well, he had something to do with this place, too. I don't know. You think that's related?
Yeah.
You think that's related to MK Ultra? I wonder. Ran a clandestine study about LSD and drug use among hippies. A CIA psychologist with background in deprogramming victims of brainwashing, West refitted a dilapidated Victorian home near the Haight-Ashbury Free Medical Clinic as a fake hippie crash pad, a ploy to study drug addiction and homelessness. West worked for the CIA chemist Sidney Gottlieb, the Black Sorcerer, aka head of the MK Ultra program. Under Gottlieb's watch, his sordid... Oh man, you're gonna force me to look up more words? Jesus Christ.
Yeah, bushes. See, I didn't know that that kind of hook of things. I'm learning this all now about Tate's husband being out of town, but it's starting to make sense.
Yeah. So, I'm just gonna look. Started involving ignorable actions and motives. Okay, sorted. Sorry, guys. Unfortunately, I went to public school, so certain words I gotta look up just in case, so I know what the hell they mean. So give me a moment. It is what it is, guys. Let me just pull up the article. Where is it? I lost it. Oh, there it is. Okay. Okay. West worked with the CIA chemist Sidney Grove. Subjects attempt to synthesize the ultimate truth serum and pursued quizzes, tech, research into... Motherfucker. I'm looking up another word. Oh my god. Please. Use
Coffee
simple...
or die is being very bougie tonight.
Like, what the hell? Like... Quixotic. Who the fuck would know about quixotic? Quixotic. Extremely idealistic.
They could have just said that.
Can I ask the chat, who the fuck knows what quixotic means?
I went to Catholic school.
Like, really, people need to use simple words, please. God damn it. Quixotic research into Kareem, the perfect assassin, and planting false memories. After working for Gottlieb Laughlin Air Force Base in Texas and there at the University of Oklahoma, West moved to San Francisco, where he met Roger Smith, David Smith, and discovered their work at the Haight-Ashbury Free Medical Clinic to find various LSD research programs in San Francisco, including brothels. The CIA exploited several medical research organizations. At 1976, the investigations by the New York City Times revealed that the CIA had collaborated with National Institute of Mental Health, the Foundation Fund for Research of Psychiatric Inc., and the
Oh, good lord.
It's GESCHICKTER, Gushichter Fund, for medical research, using them as the fronts to conceal the involvement. The CIA terminated MK Ultra in 1973. Let me see. And you can scroll down, you can actually see them hanging out together.
Yeah,
I love how the one thing I've noticed is like the guy who's giving out free drugs to people is running the control to stop the drugs from getting on the streets and arresting people. And the guy that wants to like protect mental health, is supposed to protect mental health, is actually destroying the mental health of homeless people. I just love like the complete opposite of their doing their job. It's like they create the problem and then they pretend that they're fixing the problem at the same time. Like, this makes you really think to yourself when you look at a lot of these government agencies. It makes you say, like, are they really just, like,
It's
their
pharma,
side?
It's like big pharma now. There's no difference.
Yeah, this is some weird shit, by the way. For his part, Manson ditched San Francisco for Los Angeles in late 1968. A year later, his madness worsened by the CIA irresponsible LSD research, some argue. Came to its tragic fruition. In researching his book, O'Neill uncovered evidence that Los Angeles area law enforcement investigators mishandled multiple aspects of Manson's case. O'Neill also claims the Los Angeles Police Department destroyed records from 1969 homicide investigation. However, the author concealed that the attorney Vincent Bogalusi, a prosecutor in Manson's family murder trial, may simply have forgotten to return the documents which he used to write his 1976 book, The Manson Family Helter Skelter. That's real professional of you, not returning your fucking notes, you fucking prick.
Also, who wrote this article is Lauren Kuntz. Stop being fancy with your words, ma'am. Thank you for the articles, though. Credit goes to her.
Yeah, obviously credit goes to her, but you need to use. You got to realize, none of us, we went to high school. We went to not high school. I mean, we went to public school here. We need to simplify these words. I doubt anyone knew that word that you just said before. Bluca's book established a definitive historical narrative regarding the 1969 murders, notably excluding the CIA central role. In Chaos, however, O'Neill refutes many of the Boogaloo's assertion. In fact, Stephen Kay, who co-prosecuted the Manson murders trial with Boogaloo, I'm just going to call him Bug, told O'Neill that he uncovered evidence in Chaos could be enough to overturn the original verdict. Whoa. Politics surrounding the hypothetical retrial as well as the irreparable media fallout. Well, he's dead already, so there's no point of a retrial. So he's dead. But the point is that all these things are connected so far. And I really think a lot of people don't realize. But yeah. Yeah, so all these things are... I'm just reading the chat. Sorry, guys, for the pause. All these things are really connected. And we haven't gone to the worst project. Yes, it gets significantly worse. We already talked about it a little bit. About the,
Do we have time for
it's like, yeah, we have time. We'll watch a video to make it quick.
All right,
You see it like
the terrifying sleep room.
Oh, by the way, the Unabomber was also an MK Ultra, by the way. They did that too. So, I mean, like, it's really great that they, did all this fantastic stuff. So, I mean, like, it's really fantastic that they basically created the drug, situation in the United States, and they probably still do. We're going to watch a couple of videos, though. But first, we're going to watch, like, a kind of tutorial, David Cameron. I'm trying to look for the right video, but we have time. We'll power through it. I have a few videos. I'm just looking for a small one. Yeah, I found a 7-minute video. That will work. It's small. It's a little grainy because it's old. Because you got to realize there's a lot of old videos. And I kind of like the old videos, to be honest with you. Because you can actually get the old interviews from people. Here's the video, Tony.
All right. This
actually happened in Canada, by the way. This part. See, MK Ultra actually funded this whole psychiatric thing called the Sleep Room in Canada. And even the Canadian government knew about it. And they were actually funding it, too, with the CIA. And also, they were forced to pay a settlement for it and apologize. No, I don't think they apologized. I think they paid a settlement. The CIA apologized to the Canadian government, but never told the Canadian government never told its own citizens that the CIA apologized while the lawsuit was going on where the CIA was being sued by the families. So that was really nice of the Canadian government. Really fantastic of them.
Okay, so this video is from Wyvern the Terrible.
Wyvern the Terrible. That's actually a pretty fucking cool name. What is it?
Good play on words. It's like Ivan the Terrible.
Yeah, so it's just like he probably just downloaded it. He probably downloaded old videos. So it's like he's just a various clip channel, like various movies and like things like that.
Credit goes to him, and it's the MK Ultra Helm Realm financed by the CIA. When did this happen?
Yeah, well, it says here that between 1957 and 1964, Montreal, Quebec experiments were undertaken that compromised and invaded people's minds. The agency makes decisions for themselves. Their agency to make decisions for themselves removed and their brains mucked about. in both physically and psychologically. And that place was called actually Ravings Crag.
Okay.
That is a creepy fucking name. If I ever go to a mental facility that's named Ravings Crab or Evil Spider fucking Hospital, I'm not going. I'm
Anything that
going
sounds
so.
like it should be in a video game, don't go.
It sounds like it's going to be in a horror movie. Don't go.
Yeah.
Don't go. Ravings Crab, 100% you're going to get murdered by someone in like some monster. But anyway, yes, the Project Clip doctor in charge. Yeah. All right, let's play it.
Alright, and we are pressing play now.
By far, the most chilling experiments we have uncovered took place at this Gothic estate called Ravenscrag, halfway up Mount Royal in Montreal. It houses the Allen Memorial Institute of Psychiatry of McGill University. It was here that the CIA funded a series of experiments, severe experiments. The work was done by the Institute's then director, Dr. Ewan Cameron. It is the closest experimentation to brainwashing yet disclosed. His work, unprecedented in psychiatry, consisted of 3 areas which he called sleep therapy, psychic driving, and the ultimate depatterning. Dr. Maurice Dongier, current head of the Allen Memorial Institute.
In his psychic driving, so-called type of therapy, he would give the patient intensive electric treatment in order to make the patient regress deeply, become forgetful, and then he would attempt to implant new ideas in the mind of the patient.
Now, to a layman, it would appear that Dr. Cameron was trying to take the slate and wipe it clean, the slate being the mind. In other words, brainwashing.
Exactly, that's a very good comparison.
Brainwashing.
Yes, to life.
Val Orlico of Winnipeg, Canada, the wife of a member of the Canadian Parliament, was a patient of Dr. Cameron's. She entered the Allen Memorial Institute because of severe depression. She describes for the first time publicly the LSD therapy and psychic driving treatment that she was given by Dr. Cameron.
And then the drug began to take hold very rapidly because it was an IV injection. And things became very furry and very frightening, and had a lot of sensations that it's very difficult to recall. Nobody explained it to me. Nobody ever asked me if I was willing to do it or anything.
He had this feeling that he would be able to get through the resistance of illness and to reach deep changes very quickly.
Did he?
I don't think that when you look at that in retrospect, the hopes that he had have been in any way fulfilled.
But Cameron would plunge on. The next step was what he called psychic driving. This involved almost endless tape-recorded messages and more drugs for the patient. Cameron wrote that this was the way to make direct control changes in personality.
I thought this was the coldest and most impersonal treatment that anybody could give to anybody in the world. And I became more and more despondent and more angry. I just became so despondent that I thought I can't live like this any longer. And I thought I would just go out and throw myself underneath the cars on McGregor.
That's horrible.
I stood on the curb of that street and I stood there and I thought, okay, go. Okay, go. And then I thought, what if you're not killed? What if you're just maimed? What if you don't die and you live and you can't even talk anymore? And I couldn't do it.
The most severe technique Cameron used was depatterning. He described it as breaking up the existing patterns of behavior by means of intensive electroshock therapy with prolonged periods of sleep. He carried out these experiments in something he called the sleep rooms.
People in there were like babies. They cried and they were very disoriented. And we were very afraid of the sleep room. We used to walk very carefully against the side of the corridor that was opposite the sleep room with our backs to the wall when we'd go by.
Cameron used this combined sleep electroshock treatment on patients as long as 30 days. One patient he kept asleep for 65 days. Cameron retired, and his successor, Dr. Robert Cleghorn, ordered a follow-up study on the patients treated with Cameron's de-patterning method.
Showed that it was no more beneficial in its result than the use of more conservative methods.
But the follow-up study showed that 60% of those who had been de-patterned still had amnesia for periods of anywhere from 6 months to 10 years. That's quite a memory loss, isn't it?
That's a
That
long
is a
time.
memory loss. Indeed it is. It's I think, more than desirable.
In retrospect, does Dr. Cameron's experimentation and his treatment appear harsh?
I would say yes. I mean, this forceful type of approach that I was describing to you is definitely, it can be said that it's harsh.
I
No
wouldn't
shit.
call it harsh. I would say it was harder on the staff than it was on the patients, because
What a
these
prick.
people had to
Okay,
be
Dick.
fed, and they had to be cared for, and they had to be
Oh, they had to do their
given
job?
sufficient fluid and food and toileted and so on and so forth. It was a very difficult thing for the staff to follow these patients properly and see that they did well.
Well, I'm glad he was concerned for the staff. But damn it all, I wouldn't. I could have maybe had a different kind of life. And that makes me angry and sad, and I don't know how to explain how I feel, really. I just.
How did you feel when you learned that Dr. Cameron's experimentation was financed by the CIA?
Well, I thought, oh, I can't even use the word that I thought, because I thought, that bastard. And he was too smart. He knew who he was working for. And, excuse me, but I just, I just can't, sometimes I can't believe it. And yet I know it's true.
If you had the opportunity to say something to the people at the Central Intelligence Agency who financed this study, what would you say?
I realize the CIA is a very important organization and they have a very important job to do. But God, it surely doesn't have to be done on people who are totally incapable of knowing what's happening or having any defense against it. And I can't imagine the mentality of people who would do this. I just can't.
You can stop it. So that's the lucky guy. That's the lucky person, by the way, guys. She can actually talk.
Yeah, there's probably a lot of people who weren't able to physically walk away from this.
Yeah. Here's another one. It's like 3 minutes long. Another interview. Here you go. There's a few one. I think the Fifth Estate does a bunch of MK Ultra videos. If you want to watch like real 20 minutes, 30 minutes, like the Fifth Estate. I'll put them in the chat afterwards. But we're gonna watch another one. But a lot of people's lives were destroyed. What happened is that, they sued the Canadian government. They sued the CIA. But the truth of the matter is that some of them didn't even get money. Some of them didn't even get a dime. Some did. Pretty much.
This is CIA brainwashing victim Gina Blasbog, Vancouver Sun. So credit goes to them. This is their content.
Yeah.
We're at 00 and pressing play now.
I was sent to the Allen, which was the psychiatric ward
imagine
of
bushes.
the Royal Vic. Every time I had the nitrous oxide, I felt like I was spinning into spinning with faster and faster, and I always thought, is this how it feels to die? And I never knew if I'd ever come out of it. And it really, I didn't like it. It really left me feeling very, very angry and very depressed afterward. And I didn't like all the pills that I was taking. I couldn't swallow them with water because they were always afraid that I wouldn't keep them down. So a nurse was always watching me until I swallowed them.
What can you tell us about Dr. Ewan Cameron?
He wasn't liked by the patients. We all stayed away from him. We all made beelines away from him whenever we saw him. We were terrified of him. Nobody really knew why, but we were all terrified of him. Once we were at the island, we didn't have a choice. We couldn't say, no, we don't want this. It was, we were given medication and we had to take it. Some people I know were restrained to take because they didn't want their medication. They were restrained and they were forced to take the medication.
We were very surprised, of course, and angered, and I would say somewhat frustrated that nobody really intervened on these patients' behalf. Later on we found out that it was a collaborative work between the Canadian government and the American government, the CIA and the Canadian government, who actually condoned this experimentation on unknowing victims, actually. These patients were used. Gina was a ward of the state at that time and didn't have a voice and didn't have even a status. So it seemed that to have happened in our country was something really surprising and disappointing. I really am proud of her. I think she's just really, it's a human triumph. She just won. She came out of it in one piece. A wonderful mother, a terrific friend and partner. It's amazing.
It's so sad.
So, well, there's also, I can toss one of the videos, and you can actually go to the Fifth Estate. They have like a lot of videos on MKUltra. They have like 4 videos or 3 videos, 20 minutes long. Here's the first one about the lawsuits. But yeah, I think the CIA awarded like $1 million to 81 people, families, but some didn't even get the money. And the Canadian government, I think, paid like $100,000 or something like that. That's just off the top of my head. I could be wrong with the number. It happens.
There's never enough
But-
money to destroy someone's life.
So pretty much that is the situation with that. I mean, like, it's an interesting thought process whereby if you look at like the guy who ran the narcotic system, basically was, giving out free drugs to people while having them arrested. The person that was the doctors that were supposed to treat people's minds were breaking them and stealing their memories. And the person that's supposed to basically help the homeless and the drug addicted just enabled them and helped them along in their self-destruction and never helped them out of the streets. And sadly, not a lot of people know about it. Not a lot of people remember this, and it's important to remember because this could be happening now. This could be happening when people just around us right now. We're just oblivious to it, and it's a tragedy. This is like thousands of people, maybe tens of thousands of people's lives have been destroyed because the CIA thought it was a great idea to do human experimentation. By the way, that doctor we just watched about, he was actually for the Nuremberg trial. He was basically one of the psychologists for the war crimes and all that stuff. So a guy who's who basically writ about like not doing human experimentation was willing to do human experimentation on the weakest and defenseless people and it's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting.
Hmm.
There's a lot more. I mean, there's more about MK Ultra. I'm sure there's things I've forgotten. It's there's so much you can probably cover on the whole situation of MK Ultra. But it's just a reminder to really kind of look where the people around you and the people in power and kind of just see what the hell they're doing. You know what I mean? Like, what do you think?
No, I think exactly like you, and the sad part is that we're never gonna know until it's revealed.
Yeah, it's definitely. It's like, a lot of times people want to make like conspiracy theories, like they're all just crazy, but sometimes they're right.
No.
Sometimes they're right, and sometimes they have a point. And
Hmm.
you know, I wish conspiracy theorists were all wrong all the time, but the problem is sometimes they're right. And this is one of the occasions people were right, and sadly, a lot of people's lives were destroyed for nothing. Maybe the CIA has developed a mind control technique. Maybe it's more active, but what's the cost? That's the reason we have. But
Hmm.
anyway, is there any questions everyone has in the chat or anyone wants to say anything? If anything, we'll just wait a minute before we end. Yeah,
Yeah.
moral of the story is don't trust anyone.
Yeah.
And but basically, it definitely fits into the theme of mind wiping people and the
Hmm.
ability to put fake memories and the ability to brainwash people. It's definitely something that could happen. And we've gone through that. Now, I will. So you want to do Dahmer on like that total documentary with Dahmer thing?
Well, the 3.0 page has been lighting up with Jeffrey Dahmer. Jeffrey Dahmer. It seems like a lot of people on the Facebook side want
Yeah,
one.
I'll watch it. We'll do it. We'll try to do it on Monday, if not Friday.
Okay.
If not, there's actually like and we'll check it out. Why not? We definitely have darker subjects. So I mean, I think like Jeffrey Dahmer's a dark subject, but I think destroying the lives of millions of people, like tens of thousands of people, is significantly pretty bad
We've
too.
been talking about a lot of dark subjects anyway, so I don't think it matters.
Yeah. So yeah, very interesting. But yeah, we might look into other things like that. Thank you for the dictionary, Basque. I'm learning, like, there's a lot of words. I mean, I don't think a lot of people knew those words. That person was just being too fancy with those dictionary words.
And I enjoy knowing all you people as well.
Yeah, so like Simpsons saying that tomorrow's the end of the world because the 24th.
Oh, it's.
So if the end of the world does happen, this will be the last stream. And
Mm-hmm.
yes, exactly. But if the end of the world doesn't happen, then we will see you on Monday.
Mm-hmm. Y'all have a good night. Are we ending it here?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Unless
Okay, y'all have a good night. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for watching. Thank you for rewatching. I do appreciate that. Y'all have a fun and safe weekend.